Hey, James, it's Katie. From the basement?
Oh, yeah, no, right. I know who you are. It's just, how long has it been? Like 27 years?
2.5 months.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, it just felt a lot longer than that, I guess.
Yeah, look, I need to meet with you.
Regarding...
It's happening again.
Yeah, you're right. That totally happened, and it was hilarious.
It did happen, and it was indeed quite hilarious. But, Mike's inability to say the word statistics like a normal person aside, what made you call me out of the blue? I mean, don't get me wrong, I appreciate you swinging by with food and all that, but, it's been a while.
Yeah, no, I know. I was going through this notebook, and I had the feeling I should call you.
The notebook?
Yeah, this notebook. So I'm just going through it, and there are pages of, like, movie reviews, like notes about movies, and then this page just says, It Chapter 2.
Something happens to you when you leave this town. The farther away, the hazier it all gets.
27 years hence, the Losers Club returns to Derry to once more do battle with Bill Skarsgård in his creepy clown getup. Can the all-grown-up Losers Club finally face their childhood fears? Find out in It, Chapter 2.
So did we just forget, like, a year's worth of YouTube content?
Seems like it.
That's weird. Anyway, Katie, what did you think of It Chapter 2?
I liked it. It's one of those series, it's one of those movies that I didn't really, like, watch as a kid, which, I mean, I guess you really shouldn't be watching such a creepy, scary thing as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I think I read the book, like, forever ago. But the first time I, like, really saw the TV movie was with Tim Curry, obviously, like, just maybe 5 years ago or so. And it's a different feel, because now it's like the modern horror, if you will, but I liked it. Pajums?
Yup.
What did you think of It, Chapter 2?
Okay, well, let me preface this by saying I have never read the book. I've never even read a book by Stephen King.
I was going to say, you don't read? How dare you?
And I, up until last night, we're filming this several weeks after we saw the movie, because we saw it at launch. But we figured it was a great way to kick off our Halloween spooptacular this year for October. I just rewatched the miniseries last night. Saw a lot of I saw a lot of the similarities and things like that. But for this movie specifically, I do not believe it was as effective a horror film as the first one. There was a lot more comedy in it. Like, straight up, like, laugh moments that there weren't as many of in the first one. And honestly, and there's no way to really work around this, the fact that the cast is now adults takes a little bit of the fear out of it, too, because, adults are more capable of dealing with things, even whatever the hell the thing is.
Usually.
So, yeah, I did not feel it was as effective at its job as the first movie was, but I did enjoy it nonetheless. So I know that in our last few videos, we've been eschewing casting talk, or at least designating time for it, but in light of the nature of this film and its predecessor, we should probably at least talk about the cast as a whole, right? Mm-hmm. I personally felt that the kids in the first movie, and they were also in this movie a decent amount too, were phenomenal as children go. If anything, I was most underwhelmed by Finn Wolfhard's performance, if only because I knew what to expect from him. I've seen him in other things. Mm-hmm. The rest of the kids, never seen him in anything before, and you always go into movies, especially like entirely child-run movies, with a little bit of worry, and even more so with things like horror, because it's like, it's next level. Yep. And those kids just knocked it out of the park.
That's true. And I was trying to think, too, I think Finn Wolfhard was really the only one that I even knew who he was beforehand.
Yeah. And to be fair, he's the only one I've seen in anything since.
Yeah. I don't remember names.
Characters.
Well, Bev. I know the character.
Yeah. So
That actress is very familiar, but I looking up
it's
her.
because
Like,
she
movies
looks
she's been
like
in.
a Babby Meg Ryan.
It must be because I know nothing that she's been in, but like she just looked so familiar. The casting was great too, as far as like the child to adult.
Yeah, in general, that I thought that the adult actors, most of whom, well, not all, some of the adult actors I didn't recognize from anything either, but there were more recognizable faces. Obviously, they've been around longer portfolio, so to speak. James McAvoy, been around the block. Bill Hader,
Who's apparently Scottish. James McAvoy.
You didn't know that?
I genuinely almost always forget. I did know, but I forget constantly. There was an interview.
That seems like the kind of thing you would know, and I'd be.
No, I know, but I know it, but I always forget because he's never Scottish in anything, and then I hear him talk in like interviews, and it just like with Tom Holland, like it just.
Fun fact: Tom Holland is also British. For me personally, the most successful casting in terms of like resembling their child version was the guy they cast as Stanley. Like the moment I saw that actor in like it was like before the movie started and they're doing those stupid interviews and things like that.
Yeah,
I was like, that's the Jewish kid, because I couldn't remember Stanley's name at the time. And I knew it, and I was right. And he didn't get quite as much screen time as some of the others. But yeah, overall I thought the casting was pretty successful. Mm-hmm. I understand the director of this one is the same as the director of the first one, and I wonder if it was just because of the nature of the story being told versus the other one. Like, could he have done it better? Like, are there ways that... I mean, I guess they could have written a little bit less, like, straight-up comedy. But I also don't know what the tone of the book was.
I remember, like, sitting down to read it, but I don't remember actually reading it. Mm-hmm. Like, I might have put it down and been like, no, this is too scary right now. But, because if I saw the movie just, like, 5 years ago, it would have had to have been way longer when I attempted to read the book.
Yeah.
But.
So with that, I guess we should just dive in. My first note was about Bill's screenplay. Bill is a writer in Hollywood now, and like his first scene, he's like on the set of a movie, and he asks someone he's working with for like their opinion on his most recent screenplay, and they say something.
James, do you want a fortune cookie?
I mean, I guess. I mean, I don't. They taste like butt.
They taste fine, and it's about the fortunes.
This one's already open. I mean, yeah, okay, I guess, but this one just says warning. What the hell kind of a fortune is that? They're really scraping the bottom of the barrel there.
Warning?
Yeah.
Mine just says forgot.
Forgot. Warning. What could that possibly mean?
Do you think we should open the rest of them?
Do I have to eat them?
No.
You forgot the spoiler warning, you stupids. So as I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted...
Spoilers.
You forgot too.
I did.
My first note was about Bill. At the beginning, he's a writer in Hollywood now. And in his first intro scene, he talks to a colleague and asks him for his thoughts on his most recent screenplay, and the guy generally likes it, but he says that the ending is no good. And that initially that was just whatever, but then it comes up several more times, like he when he goes to see his old friends and things like that. Some of them have heard of his work, and they're like, oh, I don't really like the ending. And they keep alluding to the fact that the ending is not great. And it sort of felt like they were, to me, that they were sort of preparing, just sort of trying to prepare the viewer, not necessarily for a bad ending, but for a different ending than what they were expecting. So I can't say for sure, because again, I have not read the book. But the ending may very well be different than, the book came out, 30 years ago? So it may be very different. Probably more than that. And it just seemed a little heavy-handed to me, but it might not have been anything. It was just something I noticed.
It could just be a way, too, of saying, normally the endings are terrible and, subverts the expectation because, by the end, it's not that terrible.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, or it could be, layered different things, all that.
The point is, at least one of us should probably read the book.
I didn't actually, write anything down. I feel like there are certain kind of movies where, like, you go and see it, like, looking down and, like, trying to jot notes would, like, kind of take away from it a little bit. So, I mean, and it did. We saw the movie opening night when it came out, so it's been a bit of time.
Yeah.
I think the things that stand out most to me, like, after having all of this time pass between having seen it and sitting down to talk about it, where there were not so much, like, in the sequence of the movie itself, but there were just, like, certain scenes that I still remember that, like, stand out very much. The biggest one being how still kind of early-ish on into the movie, they're at a baseball game.
Oh.
Yeah. And
Who's they?
People.
Yeah.
There's not really
It's
it's
a Pennywise scene. It's not.
Yeah. It's a little girl sees, like, a firefly while her parent is distracted with the game. You know, we came to watch them play, just sit down and watch the game. So she wanders off and ends up going under the bleachers, which, of course, immediately is not going to end well. And she kind of wanders down into, like, a hallway or wherever where he is, and they have an interaction where I think it was so troubling. Not only, I mean, you figure it's a movie with a killer clown that kills kids, so kids are going to die.
Very reminiscent of the first scene in
but they,
the
like,
first one.
There was a moment where, like, they connected where he's like, oh, people make fun of me too, and, like, because she had a scar on her face, like a mark on her face, so, like, it kind of played off of her insecurity for that, and then fucking killed her, and it, like, it made me jump.
Damn you, Bill Skarsgård, making me feel things.
Yeah,
Pennywise.
But that's probably one of the scenes that stands out most for me.
It's a good, because, like, I honestly I hadn't thought about that scene until you brought it up. Tonally, it was one of the scenes that really felt a lot more like the first movie, and I think part of it was because there was a child, and you were worried about the child, and it was just Pennywise being creepy. I thought for sure that the scene that left the biggest impression on you would probably be the same one it did for me, but apparently not.
Well, I mean, again, there are
the Chinese restaurant is a standout for me just because it was so weird.
It was very weird right away.
Once things started happening, and, like, aborted horse fetuses start crawling out of the noodles, and it was just, some of the design choices were just so bizarre.
Delicious.
I loved it. It was unsettling. And, yeah, and apparently it's an iconic scene because it was also in the miniseries. So I assume it's from the book.
And I guess, too, the restaurant that it takes place in was based off of a real place that, like, college kids would go to. Because a friend of mine up in Portland, when I went to go visit them, we were talking about it, and they'd gone to the actual restaurant, like, all the time.
Moose?
No, that's a store, not a restaurant.
Do they sell food there?
At the Bull Moose?
Yeah.
Like, maybe candy.
Restaurant.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's also iconic in the fact that it, like, is a real facts, or based on a real facts place that is, like, a main staple, so.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. I mean, to be fair, Chinese restaurants are everywhere.
But that restaurant specifically was based on an actual restaurant. So I'm not usually, like, a jumper, like a big jumper, unlike some people.
I didn't feel like there were all that many jump scares in this movie.
There weren't too many.
I didn't feel like there were all that many scares, honestly.
Yeah, not.
The movie made me laugh more than it made me scared.
The first one was very, like, because
the first one was terrifying. It was legitimately spooky.
Yeah.
This one.
But there were two moments that made me, like, jump.
Yep.
And one of them was another moment that, like, stood out to me too. But, like, when they were in the hospital, I don't even remember his name. The guy from the first one, the kid from the first one who was, like, a committed.
Let's just call him Biff. You know who he is.
When he was there, he gets sent to his room because he sees a balloon floating around outside. So he like, freaks out, is sent to his room, turns around, and there's a balloon, like, wedged under the bed. And I knew that something was, like, he would grab the balloon and then something was going to happen. And I jumped so bad.
Even though you knew?
100%.
Wait, what happened under the bed? I don't even remember.
He pulls the balloon and it's, like, stuck, and then he pulls it, and the second it's gone, there's, like, a dead person under the bed that, like, right at the camera, and, like, gives him his knife back.
Oh, right.
Yeah, which he then uses to murder people and escape. But just, like, I knew it was going to happen, and it still startled me. Like, moments like that was more of what the first one was
I feel like I
full
did
of.
Jump one time. I couldn't tell you what happened.
Well, sometimes it's just because it's loud, too.
But I'm also really distracted because Will was sitting between us, and he
is the jumper. But the second moment that made me jump, and it stood out to me, too, because it was just so weird even for it, was
That's a pretty high bar.
No, I know, but like it was more surreal, I guess.
Okay.
Bill Hader,
Richie.
he went off in the park alone to kind of like be upset about his memory that he had to find the token for, which was a literal token.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like walking in the park, and then it like just happened to go there, and like it turned into a weird musical. Like for no reason, he just started singing. Like the people in the background were like doing weird dance things to it.
Yeah.
It was like
Bizarre.
It was just very
bizarre.
weird. Like even in that moment, and then that was the other moment that really made me jump. He was looking at the people, turned around, and like it was just in his face, like right there, and that also made me jump. But that's more of like the big loud in your face thing.
Yeah.
More so than
I mean, that's
like,
literally
super
that's how
terrifying.
jump scares are crafted. They're generally considered cheap.
Yes. But
Amongst, because it's not really so much scary as it is reflexive. I went into this as with like a secondary goal of like trying to spot as many hidden its as I could.
I didn't know that was a thing. I had no idea.
He appears everywhere in the first movie.
Nope.
Like just like little faint like sometimes it's just like a stain on a wall
Tyler
that's just
Durden
like
shenanigans?
vaguely shaped like him and stuff like that.
Is that picture from the internet of the rug with him in it? Is that from it, or was that just a weird coincidence?
Couldn't tell you.
All right.
I did a quick Google search last night just to make sure I wasn't crazy, and watched a YouTube video, the beginning of a YouTube video that had like all 300 appearances of him in the background or whatever in it. I only watched the first like 2 minutes,
know.
but
No idea.
so I was on the lookout. I could have sworn that I saw one on the car topper, on a car topper on one of the cabs in the background in Eddie's. I think it's Eddie's opening scene.
I can't think of a single one. Like I'm like, oh, maybe
Well, that's
that
the
was
point.
it.
They're
No.
so subtle. The idea is that it's always there, sort of
But that's
watching
totally
them.
the sort of thing I'd notice. I think.
They're so subtle. It's supposed to. You're supposed to not notice.
Huh.
Your brain's supposed
Subliminal.
to notice, but yeah, exactly. And I think I saw maybe a sort of a silhouette of him or something on one of the little standees on the tables at the Chinese restaurant. I think I saw a reflection of him in one of the glass cases in the library, but I could just be completely insane. Nevertheless, the fact that I was looking did sort of help to build a sense that he was there, even if he wasn't.
That's pretty cool. Meta.
So I don't even know.
I've been doing a thing lately, and even like with taking notes of movies, where like I don't try to like pick it apart until later, unless it's a specific type of movie. I mean, and horror movies are kind of one of those things where like you kind of just sit there and like feel it as it's happening and like experience it. But like, so a lot of the things that I kind of would have to talk about are just like instances where I was like looking up stuff or like interesting things later and everything.
Oh, so you can't take notes, but you can look stuff up while you're in the movie?
Not in the movie, after. I said later. And it's just like they're I guess like fun fact trivia or whatever. And it's a meme now, so I'm sure people have seen it. But like there was a thing I saw where like Bill Hader, and I'm not sure how many of the other actors didn't know like that Bill Skarsgård can actually do like that thing, like the eye thing.
I didn't know until I sat down. Like we were waiting for the movie to start, and I turned to Will and I was like, "Do you know if Bill Skarsgård can actually do that eye thing, or was it like done later?" So
He do.
I believe it.
But
he's
yeah.
a weird enough guy, even when he's not dressed like a scary clown.
Yeah, and I saw a thing actually of him on one of the talk shows where he did the smile, like the weird little like smile thing, and
Great casting.
oh man, just in general too, like Bill Hader specifically, just because I've seen him probably in the most amount of things, and he's usually like considered the comedy guy. I know he's been in other things too. I think.
Yeah, I don't know if you've watched Barry. It's sort of a dark comedy, but that's where I really realized that the guy had acting chops.
Have
as
you
well.
seen Skeleton Twins?
Never even heard of it.
Oh man, so he's in
It's
it.
two skeletons that look the same.
No, he's in it with it's one of the women from SNL as well, and I can't
Kristen
remember
Wiig.
her name. Actually, I think it is.
They're from the same era, so.
Is it? I think it is. But it's a dramatic movie, and like they're
Oh, actually, I think I may have seen like a poster.
they're like
for it, 'cause
super
I'm kinda-
depressed and miserable, and it's just kind of like it's
Yeah,
such
I
a
think
good
you're.
movie.
Assuming it's the one I'm thinking of, I do believe it's Bill Hader.
But like he's just been in so many things. He does so much voice acting. Also, it's
Oh, yeah.
ridiculous. But like I just adore him, and he's such a good actor and so funny. And most of the laughs in the movie were from him.
Well, not necessarily.
A lot of the
A lot of the like the jokey stuff, but that was the stuff that I was fine with because that was just the character being himself.
and like
All the
that
comedy in the
dealing-
first movie came
dealing
from
with
Finn
him.
Wolfhard just being off the cuff and saying silly things,
Yeah.
goofy things, making fun of people. There were like slapsticky moments in this movie.
Oh yeah,
There's that
that's
scene
true.
in the library. I don't even remember exactly what happened, but the bully, what's his name?
Biff.
Billy Zabka, Biff, whatever, shows up and attacks I don't even remember what happened. I just remember being like, this is goofy. Like there were moments where like goofy things happened, and I was like, it just seemed like I was watching a totally different movie. Like
Yeah.
I forgot it was horror.
Well,
I really wish that I could cite more specific Should have rewatched it.
It's very weird, and I think it is kind of what changed the tone from the first one is the moments like that. But I guess it kind of makes sense to do it now because it's adults, so
That's
it
true.
would be different. And the moments that
It didn't have to be like. I don't mind that it had a degree of comedy, but there were moments like literally just felt like a completely different movie for like a minute.
But if you think about it from that point of view, like
Eddie had a lot of those moments too because of the whole hypochondria thing and the
stabbed in the face.
that too. Forgot about the stabbing.
Well, but it kind of makes sense though because. I mean, I guess it was sort of the same audience went to go see it, but now that they're adults, the things that would be weird and scary would have to be very different from what would be weird and scary for kids.
Well, I think that those things are harder to execute in film as it is. With I mean, like it's much easier to do shorthand. The things that really scare adults, other than like straight up phobias, some people are deathly afraid of spiders, for example, for no real rational reason. But adults are more afraid of like existential concepts, death, poverty, stuff like that, and they're harder to execute in a movie that like the first half was built around, not the first half of this movie, but the first half of the first movie was built around sort of a weird, maybe extraterrestrial, at least occult origin, weird clown that does like, and don't get me wrong, this movie had a lot of the fun, weird, just creepy effects that they had in the first one. But it's true, it doesn't land quite as well, and I think that was part of the problem for me. And it's not necessarily their fault, because I'm not sure that there is a good way to do it, other than maybe. One thing that I really like about the miniseries is that they took place at the same, they cut back and forth between the past and the present. And it almost seems a little bit odd that they didn't do it that way, if only because there was so much flashback in the second one.
Yeah, well, because they parallel like their tokens basically. Like,
yeah, no, I know. I get it. It's just like,
but yeah, I know.
Like I said, I don't think it would be possible without making a completely different movie.
Yeah.
To cultivate the helplessness that you felt watching the first one because they're kids. Speaking of the flashbacks, which we were a little while ago.
Flashing back to when we were talking about the flashbacks.
Nice. I did find myself asking several times, like, when all this stuff supposedly happened. For one, I thought for sure that Bev, like, left town right at the end of the first movie because she'd, like, murdered her father with a toilet lid.
That sounds accurate.
And like I said, I had just rewatched the first movie, like, the night before we went to see this. So it was a little, there's nothing wrong with them showing like filling in gaps but obviously those scenes must have taken place during the first movie. They just weren't shown. But at the same time, the pacing of that movie feels so tight and well constructed that like having just watched it the night before and going into this, it was a little disorienting because like I guess that movie took place over the course of like a whole summer. Well, they were in school at the beginning at least. It took place over months, and it didn't really feel that way just because it was paced. There's nothing in the movie that explicitly forbids that from being the case. It just didn't feel that way to me. So it was a little bit jarring for me. It was still, honestly, my favorite parts of this movie were the flashbacks. I love those kids. They are just top-notch actors at that age, for that age.
Yeah, I found myself a few times, like, when, like, one movie would be going, like, the adults would be wandering off to do their own thing, and then it would switch to the kids. I'm like, yes, I can't wait for the next one, because they were fun.
Yeah. I don't want to say important aspect of the movie. I almost feel like the movie makes it more important than it should be. It appears that Richie is gay, or at least has a singular same-sex attraction to Eddie, and has since childhood. Now, I mean, I figured that out fairly early on. I'm not claiming I'm particularly sharp, because they weren't exactly subtle about it. There's that one scene where a bully calls him gay, and he reacts. He's actually offended, as opposed to his normal just telling the guy off.
Yep.
And then, like, the next scene, Pennywise is like, ooh, you have a secret, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, we all know where this is going. Now, maybe it's because it's 2019, and maybe it's because I've lived in New England my entire life. I mean, I know that homophobia does exist, still. I even know that, I'm sure that it exists around here at times. I have never personally witnessed any, like, real, like, homophobic hate crimes or even just, like someone,
instances of people, like,
yeah, I've never personally
someone.
experienced it. I'm sure that it happens. Is it just because it's, like, we've come so far as a society that, like, it doesn't have the impact? Like, why would he be so ashamed of that it's like a secret for him? I mean, far be it from me to
Well, Again, but it might be one of those things where, like, you know, kids, and I guess even adults, when they don't admit things like that to themselves or whatever, they overcompensate. So I mean, like, no, of course it's not true. Like, it's just, it feels more upsetting because it's like personally attacking or whatever.
And I think maybe part of it was just also because it takes place in Maine, and that's not that far from here. I assume that their lives up there are similar to ours down here. But we also, I feel like because it doesn't really read as well now as it would have, say, if the movie took place in the 80s. They had that scene at the beginning, which I feel like they just added to, like, sort of drive home the point that maybe Derry's not all that tolerant, even nowadays.
Yeah.
Because I suspect that was changed from the book or added or something.
I could say something like, oh, I don't recall or I don't think so, but I don't remember enough of the book to say. But I wanted to mention that too because it was very like.
That was like I mean, like, I'm sure that those things like that do still happen somewhere.
Yeah, it opens with, like, they're at a
But it seemed a little heavy-handed, and especially as you realize that it was sort of relevant to the plot later on.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh.
Yeah, but it opens with there's like a dairy carnival or whatever. Yep. And there's a gay couple.
Dairy with an E and 2 R's, not AIR.
EIEIO. Farms.
Like a dairy festival.
Oh,
where
yes.
They make butter sculptures and eat cheese.
A carnival in Derry. And there's a gay couple, and there's people who have issues with it, and they, like, run after them and, like, beat the actual, like, shit out of both of them, but one of them specifically, and he ends up dying. But it like, and I later it you know, became a little bit relevant because of Richie being gay and everything, but, like, it was, I want to say it felt like it was, like, out of place. It was very, very, like...
Yeah, within the tone of the movie, it seemed almost forced, and you almost wonder why they felt the need to make that relevant.
Yeah, it was...
Again, having not read the book, maybe I don't know.
But there are some people who, like, will go and see it, and it will genuinely be bothersome. Like, it'll be really hard to watch, which, I mean, it is, and it should be, but, like, just a heads up.
We're both straight, cis individuals, so our opinions on this may be very different from someone who actually may have experienced these things. If you have a different thought, please let us know in the comments. I mean, we're always trying to stay woke here at Cady and Katie.
Heads up, that's how the movie opens, so...
Yes. Okay, so my last note. And even when I rewatched the first movie before we went to see it, what is the significance of that house? The house that has the well in it that goes down. Like, it's just there. I don't remember them ever like.
I think, wasn't it like when they were kids? Wasn't it like the haunted house on the street? So they thought, of course, that's where he has to be, like, living.
That might be.
I think so.
Because, like, I remember wondering the first time we watched the movie a couple of years ago, and then I was trying to pay attention when I rewatched it. And, like, just try to figure, like, is it just something as simple as that? Well, it's the creepy house on the corner that nobody...
That would make sense, though, too, because Pennywise, like, would play off of fears.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean...
And maybe the house has been, like, all shriveled and decrepit or whatever because of all that stuff.
Because in the miniseries, it's not a house. I think it was just the whatever that term they used for where the sewers...
The upside down?
That's the other untitled Finn Wolfhard project. Okay, yeah, no, it's as simple as that. Just the creepy house. I mean, that seems it's as logical a place as any. I wasn't sure it ever hit me that's why. So, Katie.
Yes?
Would you recommend it?
Recommend what?
It.
I can't recommend anything if you don't tell me what I'm supposed to be recommending.
So, Katie, would you recommend the second chapter of the supernatural horror film, It?
Oh. Is that what you were talking about this whole time? You could have just said that.
Yeah.
Yes, I would. If horror movies, whatever, are your thing. I keep saying horror, but I've been told recently that my definition of horror isn't the new definition of horror. Or am I getting horror and terror mixed up? Regardless.
Well, terror is a genre, but it's not called that. It's lumped in together with horror. Terror is vastly superior. Good horror movies are terror movies, because terror is far more effective
Okay, because I was
if you
describing...
can cultivate it, but it's also harder.
I was describing to someone...
Horror is when you walk into the room and you find the dead body and you're like, oh no, the horror.
Yeah.
Terror is that feeling that at any time you could walk into a room and find a dead body.
Cool. Yeah, because I forget even who it was, but I was describing something to someone and like, well, that's not necessarily horror, but regardless.
Scary movies.
If scary movies are not your thing, then maybe don't. But if you like them, yeah, I mean, it was a good spook time. The acting was great. It was, you know, I would see it again, especially now that I know I need to look out for all of the tiny clowns everywhere. But yeah, yes, I would. Especially since it's Halloween time. James?
What up?
Would you recommend the that thing we were talking about?
What thing were we talking about?
You know, the movie.
What movie?
The movie.
See, it's not fun when people do it to you.
Would you recommend It Chapter 2?
What chapter 2? Gun to my head, I actually have to not give this one a recommendation. I'm not disrecommending it. If you've seen the first one, this one follows that one. I don't think it was a bad movie necessarily. I don't, but just like without the context of the first one, it's useless. It's probably not worth your time at all if you haven't seen the first one.
That's fair.
The movie did not it was not as effective as a film as the first one for reasons I've already said numerous times. A little too goofy at times. It did have all of like the fun, weird supernatural effects, but even those I feel like there were less of them than there were in the first one. We had went this whole time without even bringing up child Stanley's head with spider legs, which was deeply, deeply unsettling. But yeah, I would give the movie a thumb sideways. Watch the first one if you want to know how the story finishes. Go see it. Certainly don't waste your time if you haven't seen the first one.
Bill Hader's definitely worth it though. In my
Bill
opinion.
Hader was a standout, even though he was more leaning for most of the movie more in the funny role that we're used to seeing him in than getting to stretch his dramatic chops. That one moment when they're during the final battle and he turns and like makes eye contact with the deadlights and he just
I mean, like mid-word he's like saying a sentence.
That was the only moment where like I laughed out loud. And it didn't bother me then just because it was so well executed. But yeah, those are my opinion. I'm not disrecommending the movie. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying you won't enjoy it. I'm just saying, well, I've already said it. Okay, well, we should probably not wait quite so long to do the next one of these so we don't run the risk of forgetting again somehow.
Yeah, that was really weird. But anyway, as always, if you enjoyed the video today, please like, comment, subscribe, ring-a-ding-ding-ding, the bell. Follow us at Under 655 Studios
655
on all of our various social medias.
Yep, and of course, if you're feeling extra generous and you'd like to help us make more videos like these, do not hesitate to check out our Patreon page. Until next time, we have been Katie and Katie of Under 655 Studios.
655
And we'll see you soon.
Beep beep, losers.